people, welcome to United View and welcome to Cam's show, the tactical view. Not this guy, forget it, he's gone. Not this girl, Mina, not the lone view right now, and we're not talking about fixtures and the Premier League table and all that. We're talking about the tactical view after our massive win against Manchester City on the weekend. People have been waiting for the show to come back. We are going to be back now every week after the Christmas period, back in UVHQ. It's great to have you back in here with your own show, obviously killing it. Man City, man, break this down, bro, because afterwards when the emotions are running high, it's all, hold that City and Haaland who and Pep's not as good as Ten Hag and all of that stuff. And that's great, that's the emotion of the game. But now it's time for the breakdown. I know you wanted to kind of start at Manchester City in terms of why they're not functioning the way that they normally do.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to be back, and what a game to bring it back with. Yes. What a game. Brilliant stuff from United, brilliant stuff from Erik Ten Hag. But first of all, as you say, we'll look at City and why they're not quite as effective as they used to be. So in terms of their lineup, this is the team that he chose to start the game with. But what's different from previous years, particularly sort of their Centurion season, the seasons around that period, if you look at the wings, they're a lot less dynamic than they used to be. Phil Foden and Mahrez, great players when you've got 70% possession, when you can move the ball slowly, as they, to be fair, did have 70% possession, but it's more that in a game like this, when you know opposition teams are going to try and defend, they're going to try and protect the middle of the pitch, when you get the ball wide, you need to trust that your wingers can be dynamic, can get in behind and cause you threat in the wide areas. And unfortunately for City, Mahrez and Foden were far too static the entire game. Both of them prefer to sort of stop the ball, get their foot on it, pass it backwards, play nice sort of control play, rather than as soon as you get the ball out to them, get down the sides and get a ball into the box. And for me, that was one of the biggest issues with City against them. Yeah,
it did, and a lot of their threats, so, you know, you're looking at Foden, you're thinking, I'll tell you what, I'm going to have a work cut out here, especially Mahrez as well, you know what he's like cutting in. I just felt that Wan-Bissaka and Malacia, respectively, they just won their duels. They were so aggressive, especially Malacia in on Mahrez. Yeah, he fouled him quite a few times, but it was that, like, I can get away with them silly little fouls to break up the play, but it's also showing Mahrez, you can't turn and come at me. Like, I'm there. I'm on you.
Exactly. Ultimately, it's predictable from Foden and Mahrez. You know, particularly Mahrez, you know exactly what he's going to do before he gets the ball. And that was what allowed Ten Hag's game plan to work. That's what allowed us to protect the centre of the pitch, knowing that if City do get the ball out to this side, Malacia can get out quickly. He's a really quick guy. He's really aggressive. He can get out to Mahrez quickly. He knows he's going to cut in. He's not going to be dynamic, go past him down the line. He's not explosive in the same way that perhaps Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling were in previous years. And the same with Phil Foden. You know, he's a brilliant player when he's in central areas, finding pockets of space, but when he's stuck out on the wing, you can get out to him, you can stop him having too much sort of impact on the game. And then also Erling Haaland, where in previous years they've had a false nine who can drop into midfield and create that spare man, Haaland's not really cut out to do that. When he drops in, he'll pass the ball straight away. He won't sort of turn and run at his man, draw defenders, commit defenders. And because of that, that meant that United were able to play man for man in midfield, which fed into pretty much everything we did defensively. So we'll come on now and we'll talk about the first part of United's defensive game plan, high up the pitch, in the final third, and the way we sort of tried to press City.
Yeah, and I did see that. There was times where, like, Varane was like going right in on Haaland, and I'm saying to KJ, I said, look at Varane, look at the Rolls Royce, look at the Ghost, the Wraith, the Phantom, just going in on Haaland to make sure that, again, like Cam said, he can't get the ball and turn, even though that's not naturally his game. And then Varane would go all the way in. Even if it was over the halfway line, he would follow Haaland literally all the way in, then obviously come back out to his position. We had the same with Fred just shadowing De Bruyne all around the pitch. I know Cam's going to talk a little bit about the pressing in a second and other players that we managed to nullify. But essentially, that was us in a nutshell, isn't it? Nullifying each individual threat that City had collectively to make a good team performance.
Yeah, but the distinction I want to draw is that this wasn't a United team that set up not to attack, but solely to defend against City, solely to nullify them. Obviously, you've got to nullify them if you want to win the game, but this was a team, and especially in the way we pressed them, we tried to create traps for them, tried to funnel them into certain areas in order to win the ball back and create dangerous situations. So, if we start off with the press, so we're talking about in this situation with the ball for City in this sort of area of the pitch. So in City's own half, sort of towards their own third, when they're building out from the very back. And the way we tried to press, the way we sort of dealt with things was, well, first of all, this man here, Rodri. In the build-up, Erik Ten Hag's talking all sorts about Rodri, how if you stop Rodri, you can stop City. That's defensively when when we don't have the ball, but also going forward, making sure that we've got to draw him out of position, sort of stop Rodri getting in the way, stop him intercepting. Now, when City are playing out from the back, Rodri is the key man in pretty much everything they do.
Well, what he said, Eric Ten Hag, just for quotes, I know you wanted this. Eric Ten Hag said before the game, Rodri is their key player in building up, also in organising the team. In our possession, we have to attract him. In our defending, we have to be really tight on him. That was to BT just before the game.
Exactly, and that was the cornerstone of absolutely everything United did defensively, particularly in the press. So a lot of people are getting on at Martial for being lazy or not doing the right things. Martial's role was vital in this. The issue with Rodri is that because he's so good in his position, when he's running towards his own goal, I'll get rid of that quickly. When he's running towards his own goal, if he's dropping in here to receive that pass from Ederson, it doesn't matter how fast Ederson plays that ball in, Rodri is more than capable of playing that first time out to Cancelo or out to Kyle Walker. And if you allow that to happen, your press is broken straight away and City are open with the fullbacks able to run up the pitch, and then you've got a problem. So that meant that Rodri, it wasn't good enough to just sort of mark him from behind, which Eriksen was doing, sort of really tight on him to sort of make sure that there's pressure on him when he drops in to receive. You had to have Martial in front of Rodri as well. So what that meant was that when we were pressing City, if Ederson rolls this ball out to Ake, Martial can't just go and mindlessly engage.
Everybody wanted him to do that as well. They were like going in,
Everyone wants him to go out and press Ake straight away. He can't do that. He has to stay on Rodri, because if he goes and engages, and even for a split second, Rodri can just come out here, Ake will feed that ball in. These guys are incredible at playing 1 and 2 touch stuff. They feed that ball in, Rodri plays it out to the fullback, they bypass the press straight away. So what Martial had to do was make sure, first of all, that Eriksen was sort of marking him from one side, Martial had to screen from the other side, and it was only when the ball had already made it all the way out to Ake, and Martial was sure that he was blocking that passing lane to Rodri, only then could he go and put some vague pressure on Nathan Ake.
Do you know what, Cam? You breaking that down is actually really interesting, because people can still disagree. That's what this is about. But from a tactical point of view, what you're saying, excuse the pun, that literally makes sense, because look, I was in there, you was there, and I don't know what it was like on your side. In Stretford end, it felt like anytime the ball was around these sorts of areas between both centre backs, people were willing Martial. Oh, Tony, just show a bit more. Come on, because what you did have, which obviously they've got more license to do it, is Bruno was doing that or doing that. Other times, Bruno would go here maybe too early, and Cancelo was getting out, and then Bruno had to put in recovery runs, which is fine as a winger. But they wanted Martial to do more. But actually what you're saying is, and when you break it down, is if he does go there, and you give this guy free rein on the half term, we're in big trouble.
The issue is it's not even free rein. You give him even a half yard, he can get that ball out of there, he can bypass your press straight away. And what I want to talk about now is, beyond Martial, the rest of the approach to the pressing. So what we've seen so often from United this season is that our front three, when we're pressing, sort of like to oppose the opposition centre-backs and goalkeeper. And that was pretty similar this time. But what was different, what was noticeably different, is the way that because of Fred's role, because of Casemiro being man for man on De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva, we tried to force City to play into the central areas when we were pressing them really high up. So what we tried to do, you would see, if the ball goes out to Nathan Ake, let's say, comes back across to Akanji, you'd see Rashford, he would press, but he would curve his run to go from the outside back in.
Forcing him
so
back
he cuts off the ball to Walker first to force that ball to go down the line or sort of into central midfield for Kevin De Bruyne. Now, it's a high-risk strategy because obviously someone like De Bruyne, again, he can play that ball first time to Kyle Walker, but the idea from Eric Ten Hag here, and this is where it's aggressive from United, it's not just trying to nullify City. We're pressing from the outside in, it happened from both wingers there, trying to force City to play down the middle, such that if De Bruyne drops in, plays that ball and Fred's right on top of him, so any loose pass, any inaccuracy at all from City, we turn that ball over, and you turn that ball over in this area, City's defence is spread wide open.
Which we did quite a few times. Especially in the first half of City when they were really below par, right? Because all they had was that Kyle Walker shot that went wide, right?
Yeah.
How many times did they kick it out of play? How many times did we nick it off them in transition and create the chances that we had? Because we should have been at least 1-0 up at half time because of those transitional moments.
Exactly, there was so much sloppiness from City, and a lot of this was from Eric Ten Hag. So yes, we didn't have the ball whilst we were doing this, but make no mistake about it, this attempt, particularly the effort, and you can see, if you watch back some of the clips, you can see the effort that Fernandes and Rashford were putting in to curve their runs, go from the outside and force City into these areas. What Ten Hag was trying to do was create a funnel so that City would lose the ball, in any of these sorts of areas, and if that happens, look, Walker's out of position, he can't recover. Cancelo's out of position, he can't recover. The centre mids are too high up, so the chances are, United with Rashford, Martial, Eriksen, Fernandes, we've probably got a 4-on-3 or a 4-on-2. It's a really aggressive game plan without the ball, trying to get City to play into those areas and turn it over.
When you look at it at face value, you wouldn't say United were aggressive against City. That wouldn't be your first thing. You know, like how we started against Liverpool. You know, banging on the tackles and You know, against Arsenal in transition, probably played with a little bit more tempo. This was a bit more standoffish, but again, very deliberate and aggressive in a different manner.
Yeah, I would say it's standoffish from the start in the sense that obviously Martial's not closing down.
Yeah, let him have it there.
But that's for a reason. As soon as that ball's gone to the centre-backs, either side, we've got a winger going around the outside there to try and force them back inside. And that is aggressive. We've tried to funnel them into the areas to win it back. And make no mistake about it, they've had 70% possession, but we were still aggressive in this phase. Now, it's different, obviously, when we're defending a little bit deeper. We had a different game plan, a different way we approach things. But when we were high up the pitch, that was Erik ten Hag saying, we want to go and attack City. You've got the ball, but we've got the control. And what he's done there is he's increased the risk of City playing out and increased the reward for us if we win the ball back in the right areas. Now that's where personnel comes into it as well, because you've got to trust that your midfield players will follow their midfield players going deep. So if this was Eriksen here rather than Fred following Kevin De Bruyne, you're going to struggle because he'll give De Bruyne too much space dropping in, he can turn on the ball and you've got a problem. But Fred was able to stick on De Bruyne really well. Casemiro did the same thing with Bernardo Silva. And then we come back to it. With Erling Haaland, he's not quite as technical as some of the players they've had as false lines in recent seasons. So if he's dropping in there, Varane or Shaw can follow him, and you know straight away all Haaland's going to do realistically is just turn and pass it backwards. So no real threat.
I think also with the fullbacks, I just want to talk about those really quickly and how they managed to deal with Mahrez and Foden respectively before you get onto the next bit just real quick, because I just thought they were both outstanding. I honestly thought they were that.
They were outstanding in the press.
Especially Wan-Bissaka. But just defensively winning their duels and making sure that these two, I know it's about team shape as well, but you can do team shape all you want, but like Erik ten Hag said, you've got to win you've got to beat your opposite number. And I feel like both fullbacks did that.
The key thing again in the press really, and where the fullbacks have got to be really good, is that knowing that obviously even though you're trying to sort of go around the outside to force City inside, there are going to be times when Ake can step through and still get that ball to Cancelo.
They know how to put it in.
And when that happens, that ball's out there with Cancelo, you've got a 2v1 against the fullback. So it's really important that our fullback's able to delay the situation whilst Casemiro and Fred come across, Eriksen comes across. So the fullbacks have got to be in control of the situation, even when it's a 2v1 against them. When we pressed as well, there were times when if Martial goes too early, Fernandes and Rashford have to go, that ball gets floated over the top and you have got a problem. Look, you've got to give Erik ten Hag immense credit for his sort of emphasis in the final third, but now we'll come on to the middle third where it's a little bit deeper on the pitch. You maybe can't take the risk of trying to get City to play through the middle, because if they do pull it off, they're a lot closer to your goal and you are going to have some problems.
Yeah, and we did have problems, didn't we, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that second half was the beginning of the second half, and what I loved about Erik ten Hag's post-match interview is that he said, people can dream about the title, the fans can do that, but we're staying grounded. We've got so much improvements to wait. It is not acceptable us playing at such a high level in the first half and then we come out in the second half, drop our levels and go one down. That's not what we want. He's happy with the fight. He's happy with the fact that we come back in the mentality, but that just shows you how far this team has to go. And I know you want to orchestrate that because we did have problems, didn't we, in the second half?
Yeah, in the second half we did. So what we'll do first, we'll sort of outline what's happened in the mid-block, our structure, what we tried to do, and then we'll talk about the tactical change Guardiola made at half-time, which changed the game, firstly in City's favour, and then afterwards in our favour, which got us the winning goal. So now, obviously, to start with, we talked about what happened in our final third when City were building out. Now we'll talk about the middle third when we're a little bit deeper. So at this point, obviously, you're so much closer to our own goal, so much further away from City's goal.
City is stroking it about nicer now. They're putting a bit more pressure on. They're playing her up. Yeah.
And so because we're further away from City's goal, there's less sort of reward potentially for us if we win the ball back in these areas. So rather than sort of trying to bait them to play into central areas so we can win it back in counter-attack, here it was much more about controlling City, sort of containing them and making sure that they played through their least dangerous players. So that was obviously Kyle Walker, Joao Cancelo. And the idea here in this mid-block was that the team started really, really narrow. So that's the fullbacks, that's the midfield double pivot, that's the front four as well. We started narrow in this mid-block with the idea that we'll try and force City out wide, try and force them to progress with their wide players and their fullbacks. Now that comes back to what we said at the start of the video. if they've got Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling like they've had in previous years, you know if Cancelo gives that to Foden, and that's Leroy Sané instead of Foden, he's getting down that line, he's getting a ball in. You can't let Cancelo have time to get that out there. So you've got to defend a bit wider. Without that, knowing that Foden and Mahrez tend to be a bit more static, we could be a bit more standoffish, we could be a bit more compact centrally, we could wait, we could make sure that the wingers, rather than now trying to force them inside, the wingers are just standing in their starting positions to block that pass to De Bruyne, to Bernardo Silva. So these guys are in effect double marked.
Yeah, he was very quiet, Bernardo Silva.
He was, because he had Casemiro marking him from behind, likewise De Bruyne had Fred, then they've also got Rashford and Fernandes blocking those passes. So there's no real area for City to sort of pass centrally. And obviously, as we mentioned at the start, in previous years, they've had a technical false nine who can drop in here, create a +1, then we might have had a problem. But Haaland can't really do that to the same degree. So what it forced was City to go round the outside, play wide through Walker and Cancelo, and look, if you're going to choose players in the team that you're going to let have it, you'd rather Kyle Walker and Joao Cancelo have it, especially with the form Cancelo's in at the minute, rather than De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva in the centre. So that's what we did. Forced them really wide, tried to make them play around the sides, and obviously when the ball did get out, we compressed really quickly over to the side, so that it was sort of man-to-man in midfield to start with, whilst the ball was central. So Eriksen and Rodri, Casemiro and Bernardo Silva, and Fred and Kevin De Bruyne are there. As soon as that ball went out to the side, the entire team was so quick to get across. So as soon as that's gone out, Rashford's sprinting there, Malacia's sprinting there, and that's where it comes. That's where the heart comes into it. You've got to make sure, as soon as that happens, you give everything to compress.
It's like little triggers, isn't it? As soon as you know it goes that way, that's our cue.
Exactly.
As soon as you know it goes to the left-hand side, that's our cue.
Exactly, and this is where you need a tactical intelligence from these players in the middle as well. Because Casemiro at this point, as soon as that ball's gone down this side, Casemiro has realised, hang on, the danger here is no longer Bernardo Silva receiving it, the danger here is Haaland dropping in there, whilst my centre-backs are running back to goal. So what Casemiro was doing in those situations was getting closer to Haaland so he was able to snuff out the danger. So we're compressing really quickly to one side, Bruno was tucking in, defended really, really narrow, and City were pretty reluctant to hit big switches of play. That could have caught us out if they had, again, sort of likes of Leroy Sané, a big switch over to him, you're in behind, that's going to cause us a problem. But with Phil Foden, Joao Cancelo, you switch the play, they're going to be static. They're going to sort of take a touch or two, wait for the defenders to get out, so it's not really a threat. And that's where City's sort of demise from recent seasons, the differences in their team, has meant that our game plan is so much more effective.
Did we essentially not deal with that correctly in the sort of first 15, well, up until we conceded really, because it felt like, you know, they were starting to open us up a little bit, they upped their tempo. I thought that De Bruyne was starting to get more joy in this 15-20 minute period. You know, obviously we've brought Anthony, by this point, he's off the pitch. You know, we've got Anthony in there now, through the middle.
Let's bring Anthony on.
Because that's where I think, that's where we kind of lost a little bit of the control of the game that we had, even in our, in the way that we wanted to play. It just wasn't happening for us.
I would agree.
And then we conceded in this shape, and then we changed it after.
What happened at half-time was Pep Guardiola made a tactical change. In the first half for him, this whole thing of De Bruyne and Riyad Mahrez, let's say, up against Malacia and Fred wasn't working. Fred was doing a really good job on De Bruyne. Malacia was getting out to Mahrez every time he's got it. And a 2v2, they didn't really have any chance of sort of turning the tide in that sense. So what Pep did at half-time was he told Kyle Walker, rather than playing out wide here, you're going to go and play in here in these areas. Let De Bruyne drop out a little bit there. And what that did was then it throws United's man marking off. Because we're man for man, 3v3 in midfield. You add another player in there, all of a sudden we've got a problem. And you look at that goal City scored.
Follow him all the way into
if Rashford follows him in there, then Akanji can get on the ball, play that out to Mahrez or out to De Bruyne.
It takes another tactical change. It takes a response from us, doesn't it?
Exactly. Well, it takes a response, but also, so in City's goal, the combination play to start with between Walker, De Bruyne and Mahrez is what gets them that cross. That's what gets them the ball into the box for Jack Grealish to score. So, in the sense, you can say Pep Guardiola 1-0, Erik ten Hag. Because he's made a tactical change, it's worked, it's got them the goal. However, as the game goes on...
This is where Eric starts Ericing, bro. Talk to us how Eric started Ericing.
Well, I mean...
I need to know.
Look, Walker's out of here.
Yeah.
What is there on this wing all of a sudden?
Massive space.
Huge, massive space.
Yeah.
Marcus Rashford, whatever Ten Hag has said to Marcus Rashford at half-time, wherever he's found the strength to keep going, he's getting his joy as a result. He's suddenly got a massive amount of the pitch to take on Manuel Akanji. And you look at, in particular, the second goal, when Garnacho comes on, Rashford up front by this point. Eriksen's off, isn't he?
Eriksen's off.
And Alejandro Garnacho, where's Alejandro? There he is. Bring him on. So he's on this wing, we'll get Eriksen off. And what's happened is, all of a sudden, Garnacho's got this space to operate on because Walker's tucked inside. Look what happens. He gets down the line, tries that first cross, gets it in on his right foot, doesn't work. I think it's Ake that's come across to deal with it. Yeah. Gets the ball in on the other side, Rashford puts it in the back of the net. But the important bit is that space has come because of Guardiola's tactical change. Yeah. Because we were so well set up in our mid-block in the sort of first 45 minutes, Guardiola realised he had to react. He took a risk, brought Walker infield, took him away from covering this sort of area. And look, in recent games, he's had Cancelo and Walker sort of playing inverted. You can't do that against United. Rashford, Garnacho, I guess Anthony on the other side, they've got so much pace, so much directness on transition. You need your athletes like Walker there to deal with it. But because we played so well, he had to bring Walker inside, and it worked to get them the goal. But then afterwards, caused them all sorts of problems.
Because they didn't really respond, because I think they were 1-0 up with 15 minutes to go? Did we score 2 goals in 10 minutes? Did we score from the 80th minute?
It was like 5 minutes, I think.
Was it 2 goals in 5? It was really quick, wasn't it?
It was so quick.
And they didn't really have a chance to respond tactically, did they? It was like they were... Obviously, Pep's a genius, so you wouldn't put it past him in a different game. But let's just talk of in context of Saturday. It was like... We made that change when you could see it wasn't working. We'd lost control of the game when Anthony was up front, Bruno was on the right, Eriksen was in a 10, Rashford was on the left. Bruno was on the right and Eriksen was in the 10. Yeah. It just didn't work. We'd lost control of that game. Like you said, Walker was causing the problems. But as soon as... Because I said it to KG, I was like, bro, Garnacho needs to come on this pitch now. Yeah. And Eriksen was looking a little bit leggy, giving the ball away. Yeah, Eriksen... He was sprinting for a ball, trying to keep it in.
He just useless.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, there's a reason why he starts every game, because Erik Ten Hag understands the importance of him, but there's also a reason why he comes off every 70 minutes. Yeah. Because Erik Ten Hag also understands we need more legs in there, or we need to slightly change things. And the dynamic just absolutely changed when this guy, like you said, was just causing havoc in this between the two of Akanji and Walker, and also having Rashi up front, because there's the other direct threat. Anthony's not going to give you that in terms of making defenders just think that way. Exactly. Martial's not going to give you that in terms of, again, Ake and Akanji going, he just wants it to feet, he's going to be on a half turn, he's just going to set, we're quite comfortable. As soon as you put Rashi in there, even if he's not touching the ball, it changes the dynamic and the thinking of the two centre-halves.
It changes everything. Yeah. And look, that tactical change from Pep, you've got to give him credit because he got the goal from it. Yeah. But then, after you score that goal, you're 1-0 up at Old Trafford, you've got to just put him back there, because defensively, you need your best players in that position, especially against Garnacho and Rashford. Exactly. Like, you can't be having your best athlete not in the right position to defend these guys. And look, it ended up costing him. What I will say, Christian Eriksen, first half, fantastic job on Rodri. Yeah. Fantastic job. Look at these stats here. So what we've got is a table to start with. It shows sort of Rodri's metrics compared to the rest of the season. His passes per his stats per 90 minutes versus the game against United. You can see he's making fewer passes, progressing the ball less up the pitch than he normally is. And then come on to this graph here as well. You can show that we controlled him. We controlled the areas of the pitch that he was effective in. We made him sort of play much deeper than he was previously. Wasn't able to have anywhere near as much influence throughout up the pitch, high up the pitch, and that ultimately is why we won the game.
And it's amazing to see you break it down like that. I think what I learnt most, actually, one of the most interesting things is, I know we've taken him off there, but was the Martial situation. Yeah. I just really thought, because when we came out, and I'm not going to lie, I was kind of part of it in the stadium. I just thought, although I 100% agree with what you're saying there, because when you see it like that, it makes it a lot easier to understand. There were still a couple of moments, though, where I'm like, okay, you've done that job that maybe you're talking about there. Yeah. But if you just believed in that moment, say he was a Rashford, or say he was a Weghorst, you know what I mean? He might just press that little bit because he has a bit more in his tank. I can go there and I can come back and still carry out with it. Yeah. Just a bit more. But tactically, it's like there was I think we came out of there thinking there was a suggestion that maybe Ten Hag would have ripped into him because he just wasn't given enough. Not a chance. And actually, you're saying no. Tactically, that was perfect. And actually, when he was getting on the ball, that was a half, right? That half that Martial was on. I know it was 0-0, but we won the half. Like, we created the better chances. Yeah. We were the more compact. All the nearly moments came from us. If Rashford had slowed himself down when he was through, and I think Rodri was running after him, takes a heavy touch. Then the one where Bernardo Silva plays an awful pass into midfield. Bruno hits the diag. He's through, goes round Ederson, and then a few people get back, I think, and they're back here, and he tries to shoot, and it gets blocked. But in those moments, they technically should be goals. You know,
they
at
should
least
be.
one of them.
That was City's biggest XG defeat since September 2020. So
the stats
it tells you something.
The stats
they only
are
had one shot on target. Defensively, it was a brilliant performance. And going forward, when you've got people like Bruno Fernandes who are able to play aggressive balls on transition into the right spaces, you've got Rashford, Garnacho, Martial, hopefully when he's fully fit as well, running onto them. There's not many teams that can keep us quiet on the counter.
Just before we finish off, this actually wasn't part of what we were going to do. I don't think Weghorst is actually on here, actually. We're disgraces and cheats. However, just before we wrap up, we've done the City game. Just looking forward, actually, let's just say that Rashford is Weghorst, just really quickly.
Yeah.
What are you thinking he can offer us? What do you think is going to be good to see, especially maybe against Palace or Arsenal or whatever? But just in general, Weghorst, what do you think he can give us that we don't have?
What I'm hoping to have from him is something similar to what Martial's done at times, where you hit a ball up to him, doesn't matter how much pace is on it, he'll make it stick. That technical quality to just hold the ball up, get other players into play, be a focal point, that's what a lot of Ten Hag's previous strikers have had, and that's what when Martial's not playing, we miss that. Rashford's brilliant in terms of running in behind, making defenders think about what's behind them, but sometimes, he's not quite as good back to goal, bringing other players into play. So that's the thing I'm most excited to see from Wout Weghorst.
Do you buy into this, you know, when he's got like the highest pressing stats? Was it in the Bundesliga or was it in Turkey? I don't know. I saw that he's got like really high pressing stats anyway. Do you look into that and think, you know, that's what he's going to be doing for us? You know, press like
course.
Martial obviously won't really press like a madman. He doesn't really possess those type of lungs. It's not really innately in him to do that. Do you think Weghorst would do that?
I disagree with that, Martial. I think he will do what he's asked to do. I think sometimes that role, in terms of being that striker who starts the press, sometimes the role is about sprinting, getting there quickly. Other times the role is just sort of showing them down one side or the other. Make it predictable for everyone else behind them. So I think Weghorst can give us all of that. You don't have to be the quickest player, you just have to work hard. I think he's got that in him. So he'll be a great player for us.
There you go. That is your tactical view. Absolutely stupendously broken down by Cam on his show. There you go. Do you know what? You can do the outro, mate. It's your show. You can do the outro.
Cheers for watching. We'll see you guys next week.
Well, that was easy, innit? Look at that. Smash the like on the video. Bit more. He's like, nah, don't want to do that. I only want to do this, mate. But yeah, as Cam said, there you go. We'll see you next time for... Actually, probably do 2 in 1. Bit of Palace and Arsenal. Predictions. Are we getting 6 points in this week?
Yeah, we're getting 6 points. We're getting 6 points.
He said it. We're out of it. Peace.